if you really understood, if you really had like the fucking enlightenment shit that I had, these experiences, it's like there's no question that it's here all the time.
And sometimes I'm very jealous of this kind of person who can completely devote themselves to some person.
You are?
I'm
No,
like,
man.
yeah.
Why?
Welcome everyone. Today I have with me Samuel. And Samuel, why don't you just introduce yourself to our audience? What do you do?
Sure. So I used to be a therapist, like a mental health clinician and therapist. I was a therapist for 7 years. Um, and then I decided to become a life coach um, because there's so much more that I was doing with my clients in mental health than just focusing on mental health. So, and a lot of different things that I had experienced in my life about, who we are as human beings. I did a lot of work on like spirituality and meditation, and also sexuality and who we are as like sexual beings. And so that really informed my journey and how I saw the world and how I saw people. And so I decided to leave the mental health, my job as a career as a mental health therapist, and become a life coach and working with men. And that led to dating coaching because, a lot of the work I had done around authentic had made me very authentic. It made me a very like uh, the therapy, sexuality, spirituality stuff just made me like a person that was really authentic. That's the only way I could say it. Authentic. I knew how to express myself. I was comfortable in myself. I knew who I was. And that translated into dating. It made me more confident and attractive to women. And so, yeah, now I work with men on how to authentically attract women and genuinely date with more confidence, like without learning all the stuff that's out there for men, these days.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Actually, I'm quite curious about what was the inciting incident which made you go into this spiritual journey?
The spiritual journey was actually a couple things. One was it was me. I was always, I guess there were a couple paths, but one was drugs. I did a lot of drugs when I was a kid, and that like opened me up to a certain type of consciousness. I think that I wasn't aware of before. But and then that actually led to me studying psychology. So I studied psychology in undergraduate, and I studied neuroscience. I found a professor that I really liked, and he was really passionate about both Buddhism and neuroscience. So I tried to, for in undergrad, I was obsessed with trying to find the the basis of consciousness. So I was like, oh, it has to be in the brain, right? That's what a lot of people think. So I was like, oh, I'm going to find it. I'm going to find consciousness and the biological basis for it. So I studied neuroscience and got really heavily into that, cognitive and behavioral neuroscience. And then dabbled in meditation a little bit, Buddhist meditation, mindfulness. But then I happened to go to grad school at a very alternative school in San Francisco, um, and they're like Buddhist and Hindu based as well. There's like I'm sure you've heard of Oroville in
Yeah.
Chennai, or not Chennai, in Pondicherry. Yeah, so there's like a spiritual intentional city in India,
Mhm.
and founded by this guy named Aurobindo, and apparently one of his followers from India started this school in San Francisco, which is now like a graduate school for psychology. And so I learned counseling there, and that really, again, opened me up to a lot of different things, one of which was spirituality and meditation. And I was just a truth seeker. I was a truth seeker always, even when I was younger. And so meditation, it moved from trying to find consciousness in the brain to, oh, realizing it's like something in me. So let me like I tried to get enlightened for like 5 years. Yeah, I really
Yeah.
went for it. Yeah, that's why I went to India too. Yeah, I went for it, and yeah, I had a lot of really crazy experiences actually that opened me up to a lot of things. But I realized, and then I meditated for probably 10 more years after that. So it's always been a part of my journey, spirituality, and informed my work with clients as well. But yeah, I have kind of a different perspective than I think a lot of what's out there, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Since you have a background in science, how close do you think science is to figure out consciousness,
How
and
what?
how close science is in figuring
Oh, they're
out
so
what is
far.
conscious?
They're not going to figure it out because because um, I'll tell you a story. You know, in my so the one of the reasons I left academia, because I was going to get a PhD in clinical psychology and do research, but I got a master's in counseling and was like, I don't need it. I don't want to go down the research route. So, but one story, interesting story in undergrad was, I was like this, I want to figure out consciousness, and this is so cool, and the brain, and like how we think. And I remember taking my cognitive neuroscience class, which is like upper level, very upper level class for undergrad. And this was the class that I wanted to take because it was like how the brain connects to how we think, right? That
Mhm.
was the cognitive neuroscience. Um, I'm sure it's come a long way since then, but at the time I was super excited and I went, and my professor was just this like scientist. He's just this boring fucking, doorknob science. Like he all he cared about was what you could observe, right? Because that's what science is.
Yeah.
So back then, the thing that was the most, I guess, popular in cognitive neuroscience was visual, how the brain perceives things in the world, like,
Mhm.
and develops concepts. So that's like the closest they got to it. Anyways, long story short, there was an experiment in that class to do an fMRI,
Mhm.
and he needed a volunteer, and so this was going to be for the class. So I volunteered. I wanted to be the person in the fMRI doing this study on vision, so we can see the image afterwards about like how the brain processed all the visual information. um, I I went in there and decided to do my own experiment and try to figure out where the place in our brain was for God. I was like, I'm going to
Interesting.
think about my spiritual experiences when I'm in the fMRI. And it was like very experimental. It's like there's no image. And then when the image comes up of the something, I just thought about God instead of whatever the experiment was telling me to do. And so after the experiment, he has the image up. He shows the class like this is what Samuel's brain looked like, and he was like, it didn't go right. The experiment didn't go right, and I made a mistake of telling him that I did something. I didn't do the experiment. And he got so pissed, understandably, because it was like, probably thousands of dollars to do the fMRI and all that. But, he was not open to any. I mean, that's an extreme example, but tried to about him to other examples of like thoughts and experiments to do, but he just was very pragmatic, very practical, and had no interest in consciousness, really. So I mean, I felt disappointed, you know, in that class, going to trying to figure all this out because I knew there was something deeper, but yeah, they're not. Science is so beholden to what you can observe, right? Um, what you can observe, what you can test in the laboratory. So, it really, there's no, I don't think they're going to discover that, even with this whole AI stuff, it's
Mhm.
like, I don't think there's ever going to, I mean, maybe like hundreds of years from now, maybe 100 years, who knows? But like, there's no AI that's going to be able to have a podcast conversation like this. Like
Yeah.
there's like you ask me a question, I shared this story about my life. I give you these thoughts and opinions I have through experience. Like I'm sensing that you're present with me. I'm present
Mhm.
with you. You could feel that. Like we're connecting. There's no AI that's going to be able to feel that. And sense that and process that empathy. You know, life experience. Like. So consciousness, I mean, the question is really what is consciousness, but from my view, I think it's going to be near impossible. There's going to be some level of consciousness that like AI is going to be able to represent or emulate, but or model. But I don't think it'll ever map onto who we are as human beings, and especially spiritual experiences. Especially if we're talking about enlightenment and all that. No way. That's like a whole different type of consciousness that a lot of people won't understand. Engineers, Elon Musk, like they're never going to understand spiritual, like, I don't know what your experience is with spirituality, but
I'm still figuring it out. Actually,
yeah.
also have my background in science. I did my bachelor in science from the mathematics, and I was very curious
Oh.
about like space and science and all kind of that stuff. And it slowly moved me toward, instead of observing outside, let's do inner dive and figure out what the instrument I'm using to observe this world. So let's figure out the instrument first. So it slightly
Mm,
moved me into like psychology, figuring out how brain works, and then evolutionary psychology. I'm still learning. I'm reading this
mm,
book, Behave by Robert Sapolsky. It's about
mm.
evolutionary psychology.
Oh, cool.
And something which completely baffled me at the time was, even when we're looking for life outside, we don't have a definition of life yet.
Mm,
Like there's
mm.
no clear definition according to science. This is what life is. And I think life is the fundamental thing you need to figure out consciousness.
Sure. That is an interesting observation. Yeah. Like, what is life? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. We take it for granted, but, it's this thing that is everywhere, and we are. But what is that? Oh, is it like a beating heart? Is it like, yeah, the fact that our cells are dying and, being created, or is it this consciousness thing, right? Like, because
Yeah.
they say you're not fully dead, until your heart can stop, but they say you're clinically, dead when your brainwaves stop, right? So what
Hmm.
does that mean, right?
Yeah. And I think even when you're dead, there's a life inside you, like microbes and everything. They're also alive.
Oh, yeah, that's
So
true.
it's also called life. So it gets very tricky.
That's great. Yeah. Yeah, we actually have more bacteria in us than cells, like our
Yeah.
own cells, so we're actually predominantly bacteria.
Yeah.
Yeah, in our gut.
These kind of questions actually keep you awake if you quite like think more about it. It
Yeah.
can keep you awake. Like, okay, I need to learn more. I need to find out the answers, and slowly you
Yeah.
realize not everyone has answers around this. Everyone's trying to figure it out.
Yeah.
So my question is, have you delved into this question, like who is God? What is God?
Hmm. Mm, yeah, and so I grew up Christian for one. I grew up Christian, very God is this, like, patriarchal being, one, but yeah, I don't subscribe to that anymore. But yeah, so you're asking me, like, have I thought about that question, or are you asking me what I think about, God? You're asking me the
I
latter.
want to understand what has been your journey from a Christian God, and what
Oh,
were the steps in between, and what did you figure out?
yeah. Hmm. So yeah, I grew up very Christian, and it was very fundamental. It was very conservative. Like, you know, uh, the Bible is the fact. It's very religious, right? It's very religious. Like, you see this in Hinduism too, right? It's very religious. You go the temple. They go to pray and bow at the temple every day, and they just do these rituals, even though they may not have any. They're just living in the world without any spiritual, like, connection, right?
Yeah.
Or awareness. So I grew up in that environment, very Christian. My dad was actually a pastor of a church, and I rebelled pretty early on, when I was a teenager, and then I found meditation. Right. So I guess when I was younger, God and Jesus were figures and people, but um, but I did remember having a lot of, like, devotional, like, heartfelt experiences. Like, I loved praying. I loved singing. There were lots of music. So I think I had some, like, heart connection, but that was it. I didn't, I had some like weird spiritual stuff, but nothing really spiritual when I was younger. Um, but yeah, it really started when I was, I think, doing drugs, doing recreational drugs. That did, I opened up, I had a lot of spiritual experiences there, but meditation is where it really opened up. So, um, yeah, I guess there's this notion of like being, right? Beingness, right? Which you've probably heard of. So my first exposure to more spiritual stuff was was it's called non-duality.
Yeah.
So not two, right? It's just like one. And actually, there was a guy named Ramana Maharshi,
Yep.
who's in India, yeah. And so he's a deceased like old guru guy, and his thing was like, who am I, right? Who am I? Ask that question, who am I? Who am I? Who am I? And the deeper you go into that question, there's nothing there. There's nobody there,
Yeah.
but you're also like, So I did that meditation, that practice for about a few years, and that's when I was really seeking enlightenment. And I went to India, and went to I actually went to his ashram, and like had, I remember having an experience, one of the experiences at his ashram. I first got there, and like it's this marble hall. It's pretty big. People are meditating along the walls, but people also come in through the door and bow at the place where he's buried, right? That's very, I don't know
Hmm.
what those are called, but so I just went there and just meditated. I didn't know his body was there. I just meditated on the wall, and I had this really intense, powerful experience of like, it's ego death, but it was like something just like sucked all my energy like down into the ground. So there was like just emptiness. And I remember that feeling. I'm just meditating, and I'm so quiet. I'm so peaceful. On the outside, I'm sure I was very peaceful, but inside it was just like this, like just like kind of tearing apart of my being. It was like just getting sucked down. And I remember there was fear, and I was holding on, but like it was for about 10, 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes of that. And then I remember just opening my eyes and leaving and going back to my little hotel room. And then like some woman chased me outside and was like, "Who are you?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm this guy and whatever. I'm from the States." And she's like, "Wow, you're a really good meditator." I was like, "I was just sitting there meditating. How do what does it even mean to be a good meditator?" And then I also remember walking out. Got to know each other a little bit, and I left into the streets outside of the ashram, busy street, and there's like are they sadhus, like the homeless
Yeah.
people?
Hmm.
Yeah, and they're just in the orange robes, and they're just on the thing. I remember always feeling like, oh, I don't want to make eye contact because they want money, and I don't, But this time, I just like made eye contact, and immediately we bowed, like me and the sadhu, like immediately just bowed to each other, and it was just like this sweet moment. I remember it just came out of me, and yeah, there was an interesting experience too. There, I went back to my hotel, and I just felt like I didn't. I felt like I could just lay there forever, and like I didn't need to eat. I didn't need to do anything. I had like an enlightenment experience in that moment. After that, I had a lot of experiences in India like that. But then I came back to the States and just started living life again. It was really interesting. It was like nothing happened, just living life. Um, but I ended up finding at that point, I stopped seeking enlightenment. I realized I didn't need to find anything outside of myself. Like I was seeking enlightenment for this experience to be free, right?
Hmm.
But then I had these experiences, and maybe I wasn't like free completely, but I didn't feel the need to be free anymore. It was like I was okay, like that need to find the freedom and the enlightenment, like, oh, I need that. Like that just like went away. And Ramana Maharshi does talk about that. He's like, if you keep asking the question, who am I? It's like you take a stick and you put it in the fire, and the stick is the question, who am I? And
Yeah.
that question will slowly burn away, and so there's nothing left. There's not even a questioner. So I feel like in some way I stopped wanting to seek enlightenment at that point. I didn't seek it out, but I did continue meditating, and was having lots of really intense experiences every time. And it got to a point where I actually found another Buddhist um, like community in
Mhm.
California that I loved, and I was a part of them for 4 years after coming back from India. It just happened, and their teaching was actually like life. There's no separation between life, like this material world, and the spiritual world. So like the spiritual world and the material world are two sides of the same coin.
Mhm.
So we think of the spiritual world as like, oh, like I have to whatever pray and get enlightened or do all these rituals and whatever. And then we think this like normal world where we're like just sitting here talking to people, or we have work and money and we have to drive cars or whatever it is, like politics. Like we think that human world is separate from the spiritual world, but their teaching was that they're the same.
Mhm.
And so I was there for 4 years practicing in this way, and I became a devoted, like I had a Zen teacher. Is Zen Buddhism. I had a teacher I saw every week and going to retreats, and I wasn't seeking enlightenment, but something about their teaching really changed me. And it got to a point where I had some really intense experiences there too. And then I left that community, and that was probably 3 or 4 years ago. And I think now it's hard to explain, and I'm not trying to say I'm enlightened, but like it's really easier for me to see the two, the connection between the two, the relationship. The way they talked about it there is like you have 20/20 vision. So like one eye is like spiritual, one eye is the material or like the human world. How do you have 20/20 vision where like you can see both at the same time? And I think I'm starting to understand that.
Mhm.
So your question was about God. And I
Yeah.
think the simplified version of that is like, what is God, right? God is this, I guess you can say, this spiritual energy, right? This you can call it, I mean, I don't put words to it, yeah, but like I do subscribe more to universal consciousness or some sort of intelligence in the universe, something that's kind of like holding all of us, that's like within everything, like even in the cells of your body or the chair you're sitting on. It's like when you go down into the real, like, I mean, it's quantum physics as well, like what is life, right? What is existence? When you get down to the really, really minute levels, we don't fucking know. All we know that there's like energy. That's what
Yeah.
quantum physics is basically saying. And so I do think that there's a level of um, like the way I see the world now is I still have my human shit all the time, but
Mhm.
the thoughts and the feelings and but yeah, I think it's more just like I'm open and open to experiencing, and do experience a lot of what is more this like beauty, and what is more of this like this mystery of like the creation that's always happening. Like life is this ever unfolding experience, and we get to experience it every moment, and it's different every moment. Like we've never
Yeah.
had this. You may think that this experience right now is normal for you because you've been on other podcasts, you've done other recordings on Riverside with other people. So you're seeing this and it's normal. But this experience has never existed before. This moment has never existed. So even when you wake up tomorrow and you think it's just another day and I'm just another Ankit, right? Like, I don't know if that's how you say it, but it's not. It's a different moment. It's a different moment. Your cells are literally different. Your thoughts are, maybe somewhat the same, but like your life, your every day, every moment is a totally different experience. But yet we live in our minds thinking, oh, and we have these fixed identities, and we think, oh, it's the same. I'm the same person. This is the same person. My mom, my dad, my, girlfriend, whatever. But it's like, wow, if you're really sitting with this, like, life is just a constantly new experience of this present moment, new experience of this present moment. It's like, wow, there's like this real beauty and mystery to it that I think I try to live with every day, like,
Yeah.
like what's going to happen today? Or I had no idea we were going to talk about this. We were going to talk about dating, right? And so like here we are having this moment, and it's beautiful, right? It's a beautiful moment.
Yeah. We're gonna go in dating and who am I question, but I'm really curious. Uh, as you said, what has changed between
It's a good
old Samuel and how you used to see the world, and now your everyday interaction? What has changed?
so
What in the view, like your point of view, has changed? Like making
mm,
decisions and looking at things. What has
mhm.
changed?
That's a good question. And I guess it's one of the big things for me, I think, that changed was, through all these spiritual experiences. I even had a near death experience that like was very life changing. But meditation, especially, and and I guess I'll look at it in terms of my clients, right? So I've been a therapist coach for 10 years now. So I've always been working with people, different ages, different life circumstances. And what I've noticed that has changed is when I sit with clients now and people, and I think I experienced this my own with myself and just life in general, but it's like I'm opening up to a whole universe. It's like like if I'm going to talk with you about your life, right? And I think Sun even has this experience because he says he has these 3-hour initial first sessions with his clients, and it's just like he loves it, and
Yeah,
and it's like I'm sitting with people and I'm like experiencing life, like you're talking about, right? What is life? Life is like this infinite expression that you can't really put into one box. But when I sit with one human being and I deeply listen to them, I hear their story, and I try to, piece together like, oh, they're seeking me because they have dating problems, or they're seeking me because they have mental health or whatever. Like I'm listening deeply to try to make connections, but like I just get to experience this like time. It's almost like I go through time. There's no time because I'm like hearing this person's story and kind of going along this journey with them of years and all these emotions and all this trauma or these really, so it's like I get to experience in that moment. There's only life. Like there's, one moment of life, but in that one moment of life or that experience of this person, I'm also experiencing all of life somehow. So there's like
yeah,
that. I don't know how to explain that, but that's what I mean about this kind of beauty, mystery, wonder. Is like every moment can be like that, and every person can be like that, of this life is infinite and hard to define and put in a box. But when you really are present with any moment in your life, it almost has like it feels so complete. It feels like everything is complete in that moment, especially when you're not needing something else to happen or trying to attach any other concept or like you're just present. You're just really present. It's like, wow, like life can hit you in this really really big way. Um and I think that's how I experience life now. Honestly, it's a little much actually. Like my heart often it's overwhelming to experience life that way because it's so big and evocative. But yeah, just this one. I guess another way to put it is like, you know, there's no when I experience life that way, there's not really anything that's right or wrong. It's like I could sit with a, Trump supporter, right? I live around a
yeah.
bunch of Trump supporters actually right now. I'm not a Trump supporter, but I could even probably sit with Trump, and like and experience him this way. Like I could hear him talk. If he was going to tell me about his story and his life, I just listen with this like awe and wonder about this one expression of the universe, this one expression of life that is this being. And when I'm there, I'm not thinking good or bad, right? I might disagree with him on my human mind. But yeah, I think that's, how I strive to live. I'm not living like that all the time. I mean, who am I kidding? But that experience is something that I've noticed more and more, especially working with clients and people that yeah, I open up to something much bigger than just me, much bigger than this person. But it's like life. It's like almost the whole universe is like happening in that moment, because there's nothing else that I'm present with. There's nothing else that I'm hearing, or it's just this person, their story and their life, and it's like beautiful. So
Yeah.
so I don't know if that's anything super tangible, like this is how my life changed. I could tell you about that. Literally everything has changed: money, my relationship to money, people, dating, myself. Like this type of journey will do that, right? It'll change every aspect of your life to be more, uh, centered in who you are authentically, right?
It's
Yeah.
very interesting exercise. Actually, I had very few experiences like that.
Mm.
But once you are in that zone and when you are hearing someone's story, you understand like where he's. I can understand where he's coming from,
Yeah.
and he's right in his head. He has his own story. He has his own logic. He's not an illogical person. But before a conversation, I might think he's completely stupid and he might be like completely wrong about the stuffs. When you
Yeah.
sit with him and you find out like, okay, I can understand where he's coming from, what were his experience, and it completely shapes your perspective. This
Yeah.
person is much more than what he's showing to the world and what he's communicating. So it's
Right.
a completely different experience. It changes your perspective. Like if someone does something wrong, something good to you, you can go in their place and understand, okay, if I find out about his story, I can
Mm.
understand why he did this. It
Yes.
completely changes your perspective on how to process grief and loss and joy
Totally.
and sorrow and sad and sadness and everything. It
Yeah.
requires active practice, but the process is there.
Yeah, I think that comes from my understanding of psychology as well, and really understanding what causes humans to behave and think certain ways, right? And so, yeah, when I saw Trump, I had heard a story, I think sometime maybe during or before he got elected, of his father hearing about something about maybe it was his grades or something, but like his father like came into his high school to find him, and found him and he's with his friends by the locker, and I think it was either he hit him, like he just like slapped the shit out of him in front of his friends at his school, and like knocked him down, or maybe it was his brother, but he saw it, but like that was Trump's dad. So it's like, I mean, yes, I can have empathy and compassion for him. Doesn't mean that what I agree with him on everything. Do I want him to be president? No, but like, but it's like it's this level deeper than where a lot of people are operating, right? It's like, oh, understanding human beings and who we are, and it's like sort of a type of love to be able to really put yourself aside and listen and understand somebody, right? And
Yeah,
understand who they are, and you sort of accept them. It doesn't mean that you have to agree with them or whatever, right? Or you can have your feelings as well, but you can still sort of accept that this person is a person, and in some ways that it's okay that they're just, because they're a person, because they're a human, that's okay. Like that's okay. There's nothing wrong with who they are.
yeah,
But yeah, so in some ways it's empathy, but yeah, that's cool. I think more people have that experience than they can say, but I think it's not something people talk about because social media and politics, everything's so political.
yeah, definitely. Actually, I'm curious about this part. You have gone through this journey like of being a psychotherapist and having a proper scientific education, figuring out how brain works, brain chemistry, hormones, everything. Then you moved on to spirituality. So you had like a path, like this is not I understand certain parts of my brain, certain part of people's behavior, but something is missing and I have to seek out that through spirituality and other teachings.
Hmm.
But if you didn't have that scientific background, and that's what I found very difficult around people who haven't gone through the scientific process, they can go to a completely different source and have complete different realizing, like, and I have seen it happening a lot. Like they will make the teacher their god, and it completely blows my mind. Okay, you are getting it wrong somewhere. Have you had met people like this, like who they will attach to the teacher, not the teachings?
Yeah. Right. That's a great. So let me clarify though. So I
Hmm.
love that, the teacher, not the teaching, is because I do talk about that sometimes. But how does that relate to the scientific basis
uh,
for
Once you
you?
study science like genuinely, uh, it instills you into this deep curiosity and skepticism about things.
Ah,
You always are slightly in denial about things. I want to see more proof. I want to see logical explanation. Then I will believe in this experiment, or I will make a result out of this experiment. So for me, I have to conduct an experiment, a hypothesis.
mm,
Then I will look at the data and I will figure out, like, okay, is it making sense or
mm,
not? Is it making sense only to me, or what other observers are saying? Then like the peer review kind of a thing. So it
yes.
opens you that inherent skepticism. It may be like, people might say like you don't have any faith, because it's very difficult to have faith in something when you have something like this built, instilled in you. You will
Right.
question everything. And I think
Yeah.
the true spirituality, or what people call here adhyatma, it's all about that honest inquiry, like question everything, question even
It's,
yourself. So I think science is needed for,
yeah.
like, that's why it's useful.
Yes. 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 Yeah. That's a really. I love that. So what you're saying is, you know, scientific inquiry, and this desire of this skepticism, and this it's not just a desire, but it's like this habit, or this knowing that, hey, it's important to be skeptical until you're not, until you have enough evidence that, like, okay, then there's enough here that, like, this makes sense, and I can invest in it, or whatever, right? So I could believe it. um so there's that, and then there are people who are just without that skepticism, without that what is that? Is that a skill? What would you call that? That's like just like an approach to life, right? Like
Yeah.
that you get what I'm saying? Like, and I
Mhm.
understand, because I was a researcher. I was working in labs. I was doing data science for a bit, and reading academic papers. So it's like I am so grateful for that, because it I don't identify it as skepticism for me, but I'm always um I don't put all my eggs in one basket,
Yeah.
I don't, because I'm like, what is the truth? I don't know sometimes. But I know what you mean, because I have that, it has helped me so much in so many areas of my life, like my client work, yeah, like navigating this whole, like, COVID and everything, and conspiracies, and it's like, I don't know, but like, let's just hold that not knowing. And I think that's actually the what science more scientists need. That not all
Yeah.
scientists have that, like, oh, I just don't know. They're just going through the motions. But anyway, sounds like you have that. Um, so I love that, and um, I think with religion, you know, or spirituality, um, I th- yeah, the thing that came up for me was just that, yeah, the people who do worship gurus don't have that. They're just probably such a high correlation, like they don't have a scientific basis,
Yeah.
they don't have a they don't have that mind, or that part of their brain, because they just never, and but what I'll say about guru worship is that, um it's projection, right? You've heard of projection. So I think
Yeah.
it's just people feel so good, right? And this person represents. This could be anybody. This can be fucking Gary Vee, or like some these internet gurus nowadays, social media. It's like people can't, and celebrities. It's like these people of a higher status or positions of authority. We will, if they have a certain type of quality that
Mhm.
we feel in ourselves, but that we're disconnected from, or that we're too ashamed to really own, or maybe some trauma happened in our childhood that made us feel like we had to disconnect from that part of us, or that our hearts, because that's really what spirituality is. A lot of it is just like this intrinsic whole part of our nature, right? That is always here. That's here when we're born, but that we get cut off from. But it's so good, it's so like pure, that some people aren't comfortable with it. Some people, I had that experience too, where I was just like, this is too much. I'm not worthy of this, spiritual. It can't be me, because that's the whole Christian thing, is like, you're a sinner, you're wrong. God and Jesus is how you become good and saved. And so it's like, it's wrong to say like, oh no, I have Jesus and God in me, right? Like, that's like so base and wrong to say. But I remember having those moments. But I think people who do the guru worship have a deep sense of something is missing inside of them, and they see it in this other person. And so this other person must be the thing, right? So I'm going to worship this other person as if they're God, as if they have that something that I don't have. So I'm going to devote all of myself to them, and I'm unworthy, right? So maybe they don't even feel it, like I'm unworthy as a human being, but it's like something that this person has, they see, and it makes them feel like they don't have that. And
Yeah.
that's where I think the guru worship can be just based in some sort of fallacy. It's like, it's not
Hmm.
really. Whenever I see it, I'm always I always get this feeling of like, oh, they don't understand. Because if you really understood, if you really had like the fucking enlightenment shit that I had, these experiences, it's like, there's no question that it's here all the time. There's no question that it's a part of you. There's no question that it's a part of you or me. Or it's like, those experiences changed my neural circuitry. They changed my heart. They changed my being. And so, um, yeah, that's that. I'm not sure how that relates to the science part, but I do think that the gurus are here for you, right? The gurus are here for you to start to own and get in touch with, access that part inside of you. They're just a mirror, right? And
Yeah.
so if you're in the teachings, like you said, enough, and see the teachings as the teachings, not the teacher as the teachings, you take in the teachings, they change you, and then you will leave the guru. You'll integrate the teachings. That's why I stopped seeking the enlightenment thing, because whatever that part of my journey was, I integrated it. I didn't need it anymore. It changed and evolved, and I found something else. So I'm sure there's some something the science part had to do with that. I actually
Hmm.
do, but I'm curious. Maybe you had some thoughts about it coming up as I was talking, but yeah, those are the thoughts that come up for me.
It's very interesting, and sometimes I'm very jealous of this kind of person who can completely devote themselves to some person.
You are?
I'm
No,
like,
man.
yeah,
Why?
I'm like, how easily they can surrender and they have faith, and it seems, as it
Oh,
appears to me, like okay, they are not doubting itself. Like it appears like they are in the pure bliss. Maybe it's for the show or whatever, but they surrender unconditionally, and I see them crying and everything, and I'm like, why is it not happening to me? Am I doing something wrong? Or am I too like too skeptical for my own
I
like
see what you're
on
saying.
parallel? So what I'm doing wrong here? Or then it slightly disconnect me from the people who are doing. Then I want to understand like the ability to question and have this skepticism. What have they done to their ability? Their this innate inquiry. Like have they suppressed it, or have they set it like this person will answer my everything? Or people
So
do
say
all the
that
time
again.
with a
The
god.
skepticism. Say that again about the skepticism.
Let's say the ability to be skeptical about something, they surrender it, like okay, this will he will take, or he or she will take care of this, and we
Yeah.
don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
Listen to him, whatever, listen to him or her, whatever he say,
Yeah.
whatever he or she says, follow it blindly, something good will come. I think it happens along in everyone who's religious to that extent.
Yeah.
Like they will just surrender completely. God will take care of me.
Right. But do
It's a
you?
very good thing for me to see, like okay, like they can be very calm in the night, okay, like everything will be like, let's leave it up to the god. And for me it gets very tricky, like okay, but what about this, what about this, what about this?
Yeah. I mean, I think. Um, I don't think you need to be envious. I hear what so you're envious of that ability to just surrender and
Yeah.
and trust and have faith in something outside of you, because you're so skeptical. And because you it's almost the opposite of faith. You're probably like a nihilist in some way, right? Where it's like what is there's no meaning to anything. Do you feel that way?
I'm on the verge here. Like I'm exploring this spirituality thing more and more.
Yeah.
I found one guy I'm listening to him, and I also learned about Raman Maharshi through him, and he talked about this innate inquiry and how this question of who am I dissolves after, like the person who asked this question is no more after once you reach that place.
Yeah.
So it was very. So I'm on this verge. I'm trying to figure out, but I
Yeah.
can understand like the god the people are worshiping. It's not something which is gonna help them in any way. If it them
Mm.
helps them like take a good night's sleep, I can understand. And I found this very interesting and useful. I went to that place.
Mm.
Actually, a person in my family was very sick, and I was sitting in the hospital. And while I was sitting there, I was contemplating everything, like what will happen, like all the scenarios. I was trying to run it through my head, like what will I do? What will I do? How to console someone? How to do this? And in the end, I figured out like I went to this conclusion: if there is a God, please give me power to go through whatever is gonna happen. So I
Mm.
went to that place and I think like okay. And when I thought about it later, okay, I also have that capability, but when the pressure is high, I can go there.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting observation or experience for me.
Mm. Um, and what happened? What was the experience? What it just you just felt that surrender?
In the end, when I went through all like it was not my first thought which came to my mind. But when everything, I went to every scenario. I was having my phone. I looked to Google like what happens when this reports come positive, and this test happen when doctor says this, and then I went to like how to console someone, how to deal with the trauma, and how people deal with trauma, and what to say, what not to say, how to behave. I went through all that stuff for in one hour.
Mm.
Then I put my phone aside and said, okay, I know what to do. But if there's any chance, I want to take any chance. So if there any God out there or who's listening to me, please at least be merciful for the person who's gonna be affected most by this. Not for me, but who is. So give me power at least to help them. And if there's something you can do, then look for it.
And then what?
If there's something like
And
if
then
there's a God
did
and
something happen?
something, no, no. Fortunately, everything was crystal clear. But I had this doubt.
Yeah.
Everything was normal. Everything is perfectly fine. But then later I thought about like, okay, I can do this. I can go to this place, and I can understand
Hmm.
when people are in this situation. Why can they surrender to certain thing? They might be feeling
Mm.
lost, tired. Like that's the ultimate option they have. Like the last option.
Mhm.
I've tried everything. I've given my 100%. Now let's give it up. Let's leave it to him or her or God, whoever it is.
Mm. Mhm.
So it was very interesting for me.
And so you're saying that nothing changed, but the doubt was you looking on your phone?
Yeah.
Okay. And but then when you I guess prayed or had that moment, you felt like everything was okay.
I
Is that what
didn't
you're
felt
saying?
there was
Oh,
a worry constantly. Like I was
right,
going
right,
through
right,
my
right.
in my head, like making a game plan. And I always do this. Like when I get in situation, like what are the next steps? How to do this?
Yeah,
How to do this? How
sure.
to do that?
Uh-huh.
So I was making the game
I
plan, but
see.
I leave that possibility of like if everything go and if anything goes wrong, please try to not make it go wrong. Please
Yeah.
help me here. And but
So
I was ready to deal with if anything goes wrong.
right, you're ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
Both like scientifically and like I guess the spiritually
Yeah.
in some ways. Well, yeah, I'm not exactly sure I follow, but I think what you're saying. I mean, because you're in India too, I imagine like it's just you see it all the time, right? Like all the
Yeah.
the temples and the religion and so that's where you're curious. You're curious about what is spirituality really, and when you're seeing all this religious stuff, right? And
Hmm.
um, I mean, I think the biggest thing that was helpful for me is was wanting to know the truth, right? And the truth being this ever-changing thing that just happens in you, really. It's like everybody has their own truth, but for you, in your investigation and inquiry of life and spirituality or truth, or like life actually, right? Because you were
Yeah.
talking about life. What is life? Like those types of inquiries actually lead you down, like that is the spiritual journey, right? Like that is what causes you to read certain books, or talk to certain people, or have conversations and like this, and then through that you change, right? You
Hmm.
will change, and the more you investigate and the more you're curious, I think the more you will change, and it will lead you down certain paths that open you up to a different thing, or meet different people that open you up to different perspectives. And it can be hard growing up in a place like that. I think it was kind of like me growing up in Christian churches, seeing all those people who were very religious, and they're praying and crying and just, oh, like, hananim, like, oh, please God, like, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that per se, but I think again, it they're giving up their power as a human being to something else, right? And we all have those moments. It's a very human moment to, like, when you're in the face of death or some really big experience. You're like, I want something to happen. I don't want anything bad to happen, but I don't know how to stop it. So, like, I have to fucking surrender. And those are
Yeah.
actually good moments, I think. But you know, um, what am I trying to say? I guess I'm just trying to say, yeah, like, the for me, the spiritual journey is really about, it has nothing to really to do, even meditation, right? Like, it has nothing to do with the teachings even. So there's like the teacher, the teachings, doesn't even have to do anything with the teachings. It's actually about how do you live your life most fully in who you are, like your heart, your
Hmm.
creativity, your genius, like what is it? Like, one thing that I really love and I do help men with is purpose. Like, what is your purpose in life? And for me, purpose is really that, like, why you're here. Like, why were you put on this earth? Like, at this particular time, in this body, with this family, in this location. And there's always a purpose in my mind, but you really have to open up to something deep inside of you that can only happen, in my opinion, through, like, healing. So, like, if you have, like, negative blocks or emotions or trauma, or issues with self-worth or your self-esteem, there's this person that's inside everyone that, when they open up to it, they are fully confident, fully creative, they're open-hearted, they're connected with people, they're connected to themselves, they're always curious and open and wondering. It's like kind of being a child, right? Like, being in touch with that inner child, because when we're children, we all have that creativity, that expressiveness, or even if you're quiet, that's okay. But, like, that we're always wondering and trying to exploring, like we all have that in us, but it gets cut off when we become adults, because we think we have to be an adult. But the people who are the most, like, attractive, like there's something about them that people gravitate towards, are usually the people that are in touch with that childlike nature and wonder and curiosity and passion, but they're adults, right? And they're doing things in the world, big things in the world. Like, I think I'm thinking of Gary Vee, because son always talks about him, but yeah, he's just a big fucking kid. He's a
Yeah.
big kid. He's always blabbing his mouth. He, like, loves, like, shopping for fucking Hot Wheels and some bullshit. It's like he's just doing what he loves, and he's always been connected to that. And he's very driven. So, but those types of people, in my opinion, that's like the new enlightenment, is like people who are very authentic, very in touch with their truth of who they are, what they're passionate about, what they love. So I'm just saying this because, like, yeah, the spiritual religion question is an interesting one, but you could even look at it like, I have clients who don't have any spiritual background. They've never meditated, but, like, in working with me, they just have this massive breakthrough that is gonna, for the rest of their life, gonna be, it's gonna carry them. You know, it's like
Hmm.
changing their career to something that they actually love way more. You know, I took
Yeah.
one of my clients from poker player to now he's a DJ. You know, he was playing poker, making a lot of money, and he enjoyed it somewhat. But it was like he really loves music, and his friends love him playing music. He decided, I'm going to become a DJ, and then in like literally 1 month of DJing, he just bought equipment and was, all these people started asking him to DJ at these like huge clubs. It was like this, and now he's like for like probably 6 months or maybe 8 months, he's been like DJing at the biggest promotions where he lives, and like his life completely changed. And we had to work through mental health, we had to work through trauma. You know, there was some spiritual stuff, but like to me, that's, some people aren't going to get enlightened, you know, but I
Yeah.
think everybody can have the life that they truly want and be happy, be fulfilled, be, and I think that is more important, because those people who are praying at these temples, are they really happy? You know, are they really happy? Are they going back to their homes and like feeling so at peace? No, they're like stressed, you know, they're probably, you know, hitting their kids or whatever they do, you know, like I saw that in India a lot, or, you know, they're angry, or, you know, they're, are they happy? And that's really the bigger question, I think, is, are you happy? Are people happy? And what is that path? You know, and I think it's something about purpose. I think it's something about being authentic. It's something about, you know, being genuine and open hearted, and love, and truly living life fully. So I think, I don't know. I don't know why I'm giving you advice, but you know, because you're wondering about this whole skepticism thing, you know, and it's almost borderline cynical, right? It's almost borderline
Hmm.
like, oh, why can't I have this beautiful experience that people are having? But like, I don't know. How old are you?
I'm 24.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because as I sit with you, I'm like, oh, your mind, I could see how your mind works. It's very curious, but you know, I can also the your environment can be very constricting, you know.
Yeah. Hmm.
But if your mind wants to expand, I could see, and your spirituality is such a big question, and it comes from something inside of you, I think, you know. But
Yep.
there's probably not a lot of people who are talking like I am, or you know, just about spirituality in India, you know, like it's more the religion and the very you know, praying to, you know,
Yeah.
Vishnu, or gonna, yeah, whatever, right? So
Religion is very popular. I think it's everywhere. Spirituality, I think, because it's so,
it is,
it can be very boring. Like if for the outside person who's not in
yeah,
this, like just sitting in a hall and just talking. Where's the colors? Where's something? There's no ritual. There's nothing. They are sitting with their eyes closed. What is happening? So
yeah,
it can be very unattractive to the person, like to the outsider. And I think that's where the religion takes over. Like, okay,
that's
I'll
where
give
the
you,
what?
religions takes over. Like they will
Mhm.
say, okay, I will answer you this question to some certain extent, give you some placeholder answers, but I will give you how to behave, how to raise children,
Yeah,
like a complete guidebook on how to live life and how to be a
totally.
functioning member of society. And it's completely like a giant scam, if I can say
Yeah,
that
yeah,
way.
giant scam, and
Yeah.
they're sheep, right? They're like, they're just following. They don't
Hmm.
want to think for themselves. They, you know, it's scary to,
Yep.
spirituality is actually really scary if you do it, you know. It's like, yeah, you're just fucking sitting there, but like so much is happening inside of you, and so much is like falling, you know. It's a really intense journey, and I don't think people want that. I think they want the easy route. Yeah, I think you're
It
right.
can scare you, scare the shit out of you if you're doing the meditation for like first initial week. It's damn scary. It will take you to the places like we are just doing this like the story session, like 5 days story challenge. It can
Uh-huh.
take you to places like the unhidden traumas and stories, and you're like,
Completely.
okay, should I
Yeah.
shut it down or should I leave it open? Should I go it? So it can be very scary, and I can understand like people might have a very traumatic experience,
Yeah.
and they might not have any tools, anything to deal with this. Like, what should I do? Like I've awakened this monster. Now what?
Yeah.
So it
Exactly.
can be scary, very.
So how I mean, how did you come to that conclusion?
because I didn't have a, like, what
The
conclusions?
conclusion being that, like, yeah, people would rather just be told what to do, and it's scary to actually, go inside and like try to explore and that conclusion.
I think some part of my surrounding and my upbringing had this, like, whenever I used to go, I still go with with my parents to temples, because
Uh-huh.
being a good
Sure.
kid you have to do certain things like that. But
Right.
whenever I used to go, like, touch here, touch feet here, touch, like, put this ornament here, do ritual, do this, and I always used to question why, and they were like, oh, God will be unhappy. You do it this right way, like follow this procedure. There's a complete, like, recipe kind of a thing. You have to follow one by one. And I'm like, okay, but why does he care? Doesn't he know, like, I'm a child and I will make mistake? So this kind of
So you
question
had
I
that thought
already
when you were
had.
a kid?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I used to ask for toy cars, like, I want this kind of a toy car. And I knew, like, nothing's coming, nothing will happen, because my father will bring toy, not the person who's sitting in this temple. He's not going to bring
Ah,
anything. My father is going to
ah,
bring. So why don't I ask my father?
interesting.
Why I ask, like, a temple, like someone sitting in a temple?
Wow.
So I had this initial inquiry, like I knew, I was always curious about, like, how things work.
Yeah.
Tell me about how things work, like,
Yeah.
how does this bike work, how does this car work, how does you work, what do you do? And I was always curious. And then
That's
I
cool.
had very beautiful moments with my father, like, we used to sit, there was a television, but there's only a single television channel, so we get bored very easily. So I used to sit out with my parents at the night, and I used to ask my father, like, what's in the star, what's going here, what is this star, what is this star? And he was not able to name every star, but it was like some are planets, some are this, and it opened me up to this inquiry, like, okay, there's a whole new world out there. Then
Oh, wow.
documentaries and everything came slowly to me, and it just opened up this, like, void of like the expanse of knowledge.
Right.
And I was on
Wow.
that path, so I didn't give any damn about, like, religion and stuff like that. I was not very curious. But
Yeah.
when I came to, like, apart from these inquiries, when I come to myself, I seen my surrounding, like, what the people are doing, and I thought, okay, it's a complete drama happening out here. Like, look at the
Drama.
drama. The people are doing
Yeah.
certain things. They're fighting. They're killing each other. For God's
Mm,
sake, like, there's, and I think, so I can understand, like, the person who hasn't gone through this journey, exploring knowledge and everything. I can understand he can be very scared about small things. If a
mm,
person doesn't know how a virus works, he will look for answer, and whatever answer he finds very familiar
right.
or coming from a familiar place, he will easily believe in that, because
Right.
he has no time to do a proper inquiry and figure out, like, this is how the virus works, this is how your cells work, and this is how it attaches to your body, and this is how it infects you, and the
Right.
rates and everything. So I can understand, like, not everyone has time for that, and not everyone can afford that. I can completely understand
Energy.
a
Yeah.
person
You don't
who,
have the energy either.
yeah.
Interesting. That's
So
cool. So it sounds like you're pretty accepting though of like other people and you're exploring. I mean, that's an interesting journey, like to have those moments and because to me those are spiritual experiences, like when you open up to the mystery, right? When you open up
yeah.
to the unknown. And it sounds like you're living in the unknown quite a bit and just trying to figure it out, right? You're trying to like understand it and that's yeah, so very like philosophical, it sounds like.
Hmm.
Yeah.
If anyone
Interesting.
studies astrophysics, I think these questions eventually come to him, like, okay, the world is so enormous, huge, and everything, like, there's so many stuff happening. Then he will come back to this question, like, okay, but where am I, what I'm doing here, who am I, what about this planet makes it so special, like the planet, even there's no other
Yeah.
planet like Earth in light, like, thousands of light years, and if they might be, we're not really sure, and about life and stuff like that. So it opens you up. It will automatically bring you closer to yourself, like, okay, but how am I perceiving the light, the how eyes work, the electromagnetic waves and everything. So it will open you up, okay, this is an instrument, and it's giving me a biased picture of the world. It's creating a picture for me,
Hmm.
and this machine here, like, this organism is trying to make sense of it. And it's like, there's so much programming already made by genes and everything. It's already coded, it's always going to be very biased. It's not a very functioning machine. Like it will never give you a objective truth. It will
Uh-huh.
always come with so this is why, this is why. Like it will
Yeah.
always make an assumption, always make a story, like this is why it
Right.
happened, this is why it happened. This person crossed me in traffic, oh, he must be this, he must be this, he must be an asshole. So it will always come with judgment really quickly.
Yes.
And but a deeper inquiry, it requires energy and time, and your brain will like, why worry about this, why spend energy into this? So it's all about energy. Like where are you
Hmm.
consuming energy? Because
Yeah.
spirituality takes a lot of energy, to be
Because
honest.
what?
Like spiritual
Oh,
questioning,
yes,
it
yes,
takes a
yes,
lot of
for sure.
energy.
That's a
It will
good
tie
point.
you down if you go through this question and you will like, okay, just leave it, I don't want to worry about this. So I can
Yeah.
understand other people who are not going through this, but this curiosity will be always there.
Always there for you.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think even for other people, it's always there. They're trying to
Yeah.
find the answer, and that's why I think they go to religion. They will
Mm,
try to find this answer whenever this question pops up. Who
that's a
am
good
I?
point. Yeah. The meaning of life, right? The meaning of life, the purpose of life, like who am I? Yeah, that is an innate human drive or instinct, right? It's like almost like probably since we were, a species trying to understand the world and then what is our place in this world. And yeah, religion does give people a sense of meaning,
Yeah.
but I also agree with you that it's the I mean it's I guess it's the easier route, but just in terms of people's energy and capacity. Some people just,
Hmm.
like I said, some people won't ever get enlightened or can't get enlightened, like they just can't. And that's okay. Maybe it's the next 3 lifetimes or whatever, right? But like the energy, it does take a lot of energy. But the thing that's interesting is that it also gives you energy, right? So like if
Yeah.
you really do this inquiry, there were a lot of things that you said that I wanted to just call back, but I think, I don't know how much time you want to do this, but
We have a lot
um,
of time. Depends on like how much
yeah,
you are available.
yeah, I could do a few more minutes, maybe like 10 more, 5, 10
Awesome.
more minutes. But I think,
Awesome.
uh, you know, yeah, there was something you said about the, I just wanted to call back the like, what is life? And it connects to the Ramana Maharshi. It connects to you looking at the stars or the cosmos or the astrophysics, right? It's like when you really go into life, any part of life, and really excavate it and explore it, it does open you up to this wonder, right? And it
Yeah.
does open you up to who am I, right? And
Yep.
then that who, because that's really, I made a connection that like an astrophysicist and Ramana Maharshi are kind of the same thing, because
Hmm.
Ramana Maharshi is saying like who am I, which is like what are we? What the fuck is this? Like this consciousness and this mind and this body, like what? So that's really the who am I question, is like who am I, but like what am I, like what is this that I think I am, or like what is like, did you say ice earlier, or like what is like
Icing.
physics, some aspect of physics, right? Like our planet made out of, or uh,
Yeah.
like when you go into those things, it's the same question, and it's the same question you said earlier about like what is life, like what really is life. It's not defined, but it's almost because it's like you can't really define it. It's like when you really go into it, and I think that is the enlightenment that a lot of people. So I think the journey I went on and the journey you're on and have been going on is not too dissimilar, because that questioning and that wonder, right, is something I've always had. It sounds like something you have as well. And when you really are curious, there's no real answer.
Yeah.
Like the answer opens up to something even bigger that's like,
Yep.
whoa. And then that's what you have to contend with. That's what's like, oh shit, like what? Like that's the thing that takes all the energy. And that's that's the thing that people are avoiding too. They'd rather just like do this, like, put this here and light this incense and this and that and bow this way, because it gives them that meaning. And they don't have to really ever confront that experience of holy shit, like who am I? What is this? Why are we here? Which is an existential. It freaks you out. It will. take you down a very dark hole, or very like a dark hole that if you keep going down in the right way, because if you force yourself to do it, like that's how people go crazy. That's how people have psychotic breaks. They're like, oh, I'm gonna like force become enlightened. It's like, no, it's like enlightenment actually makes you surrender more and more. It's because it's like just, and then you end up at a point where I don't understand life, and that's okay, you know.
Yeah.
And when you really understand it that way, life is always coming at you in these like I was saying with when I'm sitting with people, you know, it's like it's I experience all of life, all of the universe sometimes in these little one moments. And it's like it's because I've opened up to myself or opened up to life or whatever, and continuously trying to get out of my ego, right? Trying to get out of like, oh, I know what this is, or I understand this, or this is that. What if I don't know? You know, and I really don't. I'm still myself. This is a conflict for me, but because the mind, like you said, is always trying to figure it out and always trying to figure. But something in me has opened up to where I'm like, life is always happening, and I'm trying to figure it out. But inside, I already know I can't, and I don't need to. And then when I don't have that need to figure it out all the time, life gets to reveal itself in this way where, you know, it changes. It's like, I don't know how to describe that part, but yeah, it's like I get to fully experience life. It's like looking at the stars. It's the same experience, right? Looking at the stars for the first time, like that's how I feel a lot of times. You know, my sessions with my clients or sitting with you, it's like a totally novel experience, and it's like kind of wonderful at the same time. It's like something changes in me, and I get to experience you, and I get to experience myself, and it's like, you get what I'm saying? It's like looking at a
Yeah.
star and being like,
Hmm.
wow, like it's beautiful and kind of awe-inspiring. So yeah, I guess I just appreciate, thank you for having me on and asking such, like, you know, intriguing questions. And I wouldn't go into these topics as deeply if it wasn't some part of you too, right? So you're clearly a very, I don't know, I'm just curious to know more about you, and I'm glad we're in the same
I'm always
community
very
because
curious. Actually,
yeah,
I'm a
yeah,
very curious
yeah.
person.
You're what?
I'm a very curious person, so I would like to
Yeah,
know
very
more and more and
curious, and
more.
you want to figure it out. And yeah, I imagine you're good at branding. It's like you apply that skill there as well. And yeah, I'm just I feel excited that, yeah, we got to have this conversation.
I'm definitely very happy. Actually, I very enjoyed this conversation. So yeah, thanks again for this opportunity, and hopefully in the future we'll talk more about your other aspects of your offerings, like sexuality in that aspect. So
Sure.
definitely, thanks again for this conversation, and please let us know, like, if someone wants to connect with you, where they can find you and how to reach out to you.
Sure. Yeah. So I have a couple different accounts right now on Instagram. So that's pretty much the only place to find me. Is um, I have an Instagram called Masculine Spiritual Truth, which is interesting because that's, you know, given our conversation. But and then I also have another Instagram or business called where I do authentic dating, and that's you can find me at Authentic Dating Coach on Instagram. So yeah, those are the two places you can find me. Yeah.
Awesome. Thanks again for joining,
Sure.
and
Thank
yeah,
you. Or thank you for having this
awesome.
conversation. Yeah.